but we also have all stars who are speaking today. So I'm going to try to do mine the fast way, which I think I'm pretty good at this point. Um, and and I do have a quiz for you today. I think you all love quizzes. I just have this feeling. So I'm going to give you what you want. All right. So we're going to be talking about this is an oversimplification about Lisa Deeker's part today. And John, you see my slideshow, right?
I do. It looks great.
Okay, great. So when I say coaching tool, that is, she's going to be talking about much more than that in all of 15 minutes. And then the New Jersey SPDIG partnership, we have Allison Bullock and we also have Natalie Doherty. Remind me, Doherty or Doherty? Doherty, right?
Dirty.
Doherty. You even have that. This is how you pronounce my name on your, and then all of a sudden I got nervous. All right. So we have some great speakers today, all that to say. We will be talking about the takeaways that were shared at last month's webinar about the SPDIG National Meeting. So what stuck with you? What have you used? What do you plan to use? We also talked about what your data needs are, and that was specifically in relation to the question that Bill Hunnekens raised. He is a TA provider in the data area for OSEP, and he said, what do you all need? And so I'm going to share what the date, the information we received from you all and some plans that we have for that. Then I have a few resources related to what our speakers are covering today. And then you'll hear from Lisa. And then I'm going to have a quick CLSD quiz in between Lisa and New Jersey, just to kind of see, understand the level of knowledge in the room about the conference. Well, I can't say it yet. Anyways, and then New Jersey SPDIG is going to talk about how they've scaled their SPDIG work and their model demo work via a partnership with CLSD, which I will say what that stands for later, so I don't mess up the quiz. All right, so this is the national meeting takeaways, and then I'm also going to share the data needs. And so the national meeting, our themes were optimizing dissemination, developing partnerships, and showing impact. And the questions we had for you were, what have you used from the meeting? Did you reach out to anyone as a result of the meeting? And what action did you take or do you plan to take? And here's what we heard. Folks are using the dissemination workbook. They're excited about it. It's concrete. They've been able to have some really good conversations with various partners they work with as a result of it, as well as their smaller internal team. And it's made people more mindful of dissemination generally, which we find is true when you've got a good concrete tool. 15% solutions. So this is a liberating structure that helps people think about the 15% of something in their work life that they have control over. So say, there's 100% of something, like say you got, you're working on an initiative. 85% of that might be out of your control, but at least 15% of that is something that you can do something about. And, just a little editorial on my side. I've used that conceptually recently about my work as well. So it's been just a helpful mindset. Using various strategies and formats beyond the SPDIG. So the different formats that were used, we've heard from SPDIGs that they're using those in their own work, and that's always what we're hoping for. People liked the themed playlist and the Name That Tune game that we started off with. When I say we, royal we, I wasn't even there. One of the breakouts they used or that showed the Noster, I believe that's how you say it, model for managing complex change. And I'm not going to take time right now to show that to you. Many of you have seen it before. It's all these different elements that you have to focus on when you are doing something big and different. And when an element is missing, the resulting effect on people who are involved in that change. People liked the focus on stories and audiences and how to reach people with stories from different audiences. Eliana's keynote, they liked it and they've shared it because we have the recording of it with colleagues. They liked thinking through a plan for sustainability. And they also liked sharing infographics and thinking about using infographics in their work. John, is there anything I should note from the chat at this point? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
No, sorry, on my end. No, not that I see. I was just trying to put the Noster model link in the chat, but I'm
Okay.
having trouble copying it. So people keep your eyes peeled. I'll get it in as soon as I can.
Okay. All right. Yep, we can definitely do that for you. Easy day. All right. So those were the national meeting. Here are the data needs. Folks said they needed user-friendly platforms to share data. And Lisa might have thoughts about this too. So Lisa, feel free to add to the chat if you'd like to. How to effectively and efficiently share data, how to create a data dashboard that districts can use, visualizations, and using data in an impact one pager or an impact story. So now that we know the needs, we'd be interested in if you have an expertise in any of these areas, or even just like have played around with something and have learned some things, or if you know somebody who does, please share with John and myself. You can do it in the chat, you can email us. But we need to start collecting expertise so that we can help the SIG network, help SPDIG overall in these areas. All right, so resources and technical assistance help. So this is a HLP UDL EBP crosswalk, which is high leverage practice, universal design for learning, and evidence-based practice. This was a crosswalk created by CAST and University of Kansas based on some of the OSEP work that they were doing. And I know many of you are, and you're all using evidence-based practices. Many of you are using the high leverage practices. Many of you are using UDL. There's also an online professional learning self-assessment. I have some other tools that are good for that as well. As more and more SPDIGs are creating modules for their work, it's important to be mindful of you still have to have effective professional learning, right? Like the same things that are true for in-person evidence-based professional development are generally true for something that is online, such as making it active, ensuring that folks get to mastery and reflect on that mastery, using concrete examples, building readiness before the session, etc. So a couple different self-assessments. That's one there, and I'll share another one in the chat in just a moment. And then there's a data visualization toolkit based on that data need that Daisy, one of the OSEP centers, had created a few years back and was updated in 2022 for you all to look at. Again, I'll put those resources in just a minute into the chat for you as well. And you have these slides available on the event page. All right. So Lisa did not know I was going to share this picture, but I think that when somebody has worked so hard for people with disabilities and has given her time so generously and is awarded for that, I think we should all know about it, right? This is really important. This is the CEC convention in 2025, the Leadership Award. And so, Lisa, I hope you don't mind that I'm showing that. But I just think your work has been so important. And I don't know how you do everything you do. You have great energy, and I'm glad that you're here today to share with all of us. She'll be talking about Project Flight and the STEM coaching related to it. She has been using biometrics, she and her team, and uh, evidence-based practices in STEM, all in a web-based design. And then she's also going to talk about the Center for Innovation Design and Digital Learning, CIDL, which is an OSEP-funded center that was created for university faculty and now is also available in K through 12. And so she's going to talk about some opportunities there for technology supports. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lisa Deeker.
Well, all right. So let's just start with the real reason. I have great project officers like Jennifer Coffey who puts up with my calling her and saying, we're going to try this. She's like, go for it. So first of all, thank you for having me. And thank you for your leadership in the States. I can't tell you how appreciative I am. I know those are tough jobs. And I'm a sibling and a parent. I have a great son who was the I always share the strengths first. 20th best gymnast in the United States, but has Tourette's, dyslexia, and dysgraphia. And the state director and I became really good friends a lot based on needing accommodations on testing. So I appreciate all that you do, and I thank you as a parent. I'm going to share with you, as Jennifer said, 2 projects, and I'll try to leave a couple minutes at the end. I'm glad it's being transcribed because I do speak fast, but I'm also happy to share slides, resources, or anything else that you might want at any point in time. So with that, are we seeing my large slide?
That looks great.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. All right. So basically what I wanted to do is share with you 2 projects. I happen to be the PI on the first one, and I'm a co-PI on the second one. But the magical word I know you're going to want is that these are all meant to be used together with you, with the field, with families, with teachers, with coaches. And the biggest word is in yellow there. It's free. I know it's in your budget because everybody can afford free. So when somebody says, if it costs nothing, can I use it? Not only does it cost zero, it's actually also high quality because sometimes you get what you pay for. The U.S. Department of Education has funded these projects, so you're getting the benefits from that. So I wanted to start with a question in the chat for you because I think it aligns perfectly with this session. You most stressed as an educator or leader? And I'll give you an example in case you need one. I was sharing, I was most stressed when I created a simulator to train teachers with avatars, hold the patent for that work. And I first used it on a stage when the internet barely worked at NASD in front of every state director and thought I would vomit before it ended. So I'm just curious, when were you most stressed? We'll take a minute and look at your chats and see if we can get some smiles out of that. First time principal watch me. Okay, good. When legal grievance was there. Ooh, that I can only imagine. When I was trying to get through materials before state testing. I love it. Angry parents. Yeah. We need like an app for that. Angry birds, angry parents, that you could practice before they come in sitting in IEPs. Yeah, not consensus. Representing a group of principals when people don't read emails. I love that. When a parent threw it, oh my goodness, that is not good, James. All right. So as you keep putting the things in the chat, one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that what's exciting, and I think what you'll enjoy today, is that's something we've got built into this project, is how do we look at stress for teachers? And you all know the data on teacher turnover. So I'm not going to bore you with that, but I'm actually going to then move you into what are some things you could do to help those novice teachers, general ed or special ed, that might be working with students in the STEM areas. And so I run a center called Flexible Learning through Innovations in Teaching and Education. And the Flight STEM Coaching project lives in that center. And it has 3 specific goals to help any teacher, but targeting special ed teachers in STEM delivery, helping use evidence-based STEM instruction, and helping use STEM content knowledge, increase that of students with disabilities. So I love the word buckets. So I don't know if you like the word buckets, but here's what I love that I think we've created and I think is exciting. So we have 3 different buckets that you can pick and choose if you want to use all 3 buckets, or if you want to use just one piece of this project alone. And then I'll again talk about CITL here in a moment. And so the first bucket is what's called the coaching cycle, which most of you have coaches in some capacity. Everything again out here is free. We've borrowed from CAST and others coaching cycle material, so we didn't recreate the wheel. And under the coaching cycle, we have mini trainings, online PD for your coaches. But I think one of the biggest takeaways, if I were sitting in your shoes, that I would want to think about is we've also created the narrative and the script for that coaching of a math or a science coach to work with a general ed teacher or a special ed teacher working with kids with disabilities. And in that script, we've asked about things like IEPs that a math and science coach might not know to ask about. We've asked about high leverage practices in special ed. Have you thought about which high leverage practice you're going to coach? And then we also have this all set up so that they can do this on their phone. It's a Qualtrics survey and they can get all of their data in one spot. So it's something that if you'd like to use that, the coaching cycle, the PD is all video based, and there's a checklist and a process for the coaches to go through, and that's bucket one.
And Lisa, just so you know, you're looking at innovating together that slide, is that right?
I am looking at pre-observation. Are you not seeing?
no,
Oh, you're not
I'm
seeing
not-
any of my
it's not-
slides, are you? Okay,
Well, I
thank
see
you.
your slides, but not where you are.
Yeah, I think
Wow,
you just need
that's
to restart the slideshow, maybe.
Okay, got it. That's so fascinating that it stopped sharing. Thank you. Because, yeah, I was looking at all these great slides and you all were not.
It sounded like you were.
I know. I knew exactly what I was pointing to. Let me stop that again. All right. Hold on. We've got a glitch.
Yeah, in your defense, it really does look like a glitch on my end, in that it showed your slideshow still being
Yeah,
toggled on, but
understood. Well, and there's nothing better than being a tech person and tech doesn't work. So let's try that again.
It's rough,
All right.
isn't it?
Now do you see them?
It's not in slideshow. Now it's in slideshow
perfect.
mode.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll go back those slides that I just shared with you. So
Okay.
these are the resources. I gave you the goals. And then this is a coaching cycle. So we go through a traditional cycle. Here's the pre-observation checklist I already made for you. Here's the post-observation checklist, and all of that is in video format. Following me, seeing it now, correct? Great. Thanks for telling me. All right. The second bucket is one that I get giddy about. As a math and science person in special ed, I've kind of been lonely throughout my career. We do a lot in literacy, but math and science, math gets more attention than science even, is we decided to start to harvest the best resources the field could use. And so what you will see here is that we have a simple way where you can type in a keyword like behavior, grouping. This is not on how do you teach fractions, how do you help kids with disabilities in the high leverage practice area do better in learning math and science. And so what you'll see here is if I typed in the word behavior, it would pull from all of the best resources. We've harvested over 700. It would tell you if it's a 1 minute, a 5 minute, a 10 minute, long, short, medium. It will tell you which high leverage practice it aligns to. And it allows you then to see the best of the best resources in our field without having to go out and do a Google search. And so if you just type in the word behavior right now, if you went to the site, you would see multiple ones go up. And I can show you that if you're interested. So that's bucket number 2. Over 700 resources, all been vetted by math, science, and special ed folks as the best of the best aligned with the high leverage practices. And that's all a one-stop shop. And why we did that is we want teachers to do their own professional development instead of asking a math and science coach to try to coach them in special ed when they may not know what they are talking about. So again, not saying that they aren't good at it, but these are the best of the best resources we could find. The third bucket, which I think is where I get even giddier, I guess if that's a word, is that we are actually providing you a free tagging tool to tag specific practices you might want to look at. And the Maryland Department of Education is already working with us. We've talked with some other state departments, free, open source, and we have one more year on our grant. We'd be happy to work with any of you that might be interested. First thing I must tell you, you upload a video. When the video is uploaded, we never see your video. So you don't upload a video to us, you upload it on your computer. So just like this Zoom session now, if I wanted to tag my behavior from the session, I can then go out to the site, open the observation tool, and it will tag that behavior, but the video never goes anywhere. So it is the best privacy safe thing that has been created, and it's all web-based. You don't need a fancy app or anything along those lines. But this is what's exciting. If you are interested, we have created a tool that you can stack any biometric data you might want. So our teachers in our study, and Jennifer, you don't even know this, but almost every teacher has decided they wanted to wear a biometric device this year. We have 150 teachers, 75 will be wearing the device. We're super excited in our experimental group. And that device then will give them their heart rate during their teaching time. So we are starting to be able to not only tag their performance, but to tag their biometric data. And I'll talk more about that. So basically our dashboard is customizable. So if you want to tag things from your state department, if you want to align it with our high leverage practices, if you want to align it with something else, you can. We can do free facial analysis, and we're looking at even other multi-session extendable customizable ways. So I'll take you through the site so you can see what happens. So the first time you go, you log in. The only reason you log in is so we can report to our amazing program officer how many people logged in. After that, you never have to log in again if you're on the same computer. That's just a one and done. We're not keeping any data. We're just trying to see who are new users to the site. Then once you're there, you pick the high leverage practice you wanted to tag on the video. You then open the video on your computer. Remember, there's never, ever, ever any video coming to us. Once you open that video, all this is out there in instructions. There's videos to do this. It should be self-explanatory. We're in our final year, and the teachers are all using it and the coaches without any help from us at this point in time. What happens once you're out there is then there's this tagging interface. And now I've hit the tags I wanted. And you'll see over here, this teacher wanted me to work with her on probing for correct responses. And she wanted me to put in yellow anything I miscued and if there was any question error types. Okay, notice she had no blue, but below you see the red, the yellow. Here's what's most exciting for us. Coaches tell us they're saving 50 to 70% of their time in coaching sessions. Because now what they're doing is instead of saying, hey, let's talk about what you did, they go directly to that tag and say, look, here's where it's happened. Here's where you missed it. What could we do differently next time? So now we've got a really strategic coaching session. Now, this is the other part that's fun. Below that, we can automatically do facial analysis. It automatically runs that for you. So on the video, it's not 100% accurate. We treat this like HIPAA data. We don't judge you from this. We ask teachers to use this to see if it's helpful to them. So you'll see that the peaks are where I'm happy, the lines are where I'm neutral. We chose not to do lines where you're sad because we didn't want anybody to be like, oh, I was sad here. And then we can see your heart rate. So you'll notice about 2/3 into that screen, you'll see a peak in the heart rate and smiles. And we asked that teacher, we stopped there and she goes, yeah, I finally did all those other things I did last time really well and I didn't have to think about it. So she said, I just got giddy with myself. And so now we can decide, again, giving teachers information that's beyond just what do you think's happening on the outside, what's also happening on the inside. That can be analyzed in lots of different ways. So again, it can have a pie chart, a time count. All of that is out there, self-explanatory. We are happy if you're like, oh gosh, we really want to use this, but it seems complicated. It's A, not, and B, our team will get online and help you with it if you're interested. Some future extensions, we're trying to get voice response. We even have somebody who's interested in like body shifting response and trying to build deeper algorithms to maybe have a video in the future. Analytic software that you could put a video in and automatically tell you your stressors. So again, we think there's all kinds of things here that could really help. The last part, and then I'll open it up for the last minute or so with questions, just going to highlight the new CITL project. If you're interested in this, this is a project, as Jennifer said, created for faculty in higher ed, has all kinds of free resources. It's meant to really build the technology infrastructure in this country for use of both by teachers and faculty in higher education. The focus in the first grant was completely higher ed. This new grant actually also focuses on K-12. So if you're interested, this is the CITL website. You'll see at the top there's resources, events. There's a whole section on artificial intelligence. There's a community you can join. I just did a session in the community on all of the free resources that are out there for podcasts that you might want to use, and then all kinds of services. Some of the resources, just to let you have a quick preview of those if you're interested. There's a whole summary we've done on AI state guidance. We don't know what that means with the new federal mandate on AI being federal policy, but we do think it's interesting that most of the states did not have anything about disabilities in it. So again, something to think about in your state. There's a free resource on using AI. That's a book that we've written and it's free for you to download. There's all kinds of tech alliances. We had a higher ed tech alliance. We're talking about having state level tech alliances on this new grant that just kicked off literally last week. And then we're also doing a lot with frameworks for responsible AI use, which I could see every one of you being interested in. This was literally just finished about 2 weeks ago. We have CITL Community AI and office hours if you're interested in that. And we'd certainly be happy to have you join anytime, anybody. So if you have, a tech person that's like, wow, I need to understand special ed and AI better, have them join our community and jump on an office hour if a topic interests them. And then just so you know, we're doing a CEC collaboration monthly AI quick takes, and we're going to be doing a one-day summary. There is a cost for that in partnership with CEC that is focused on AI. If you have questions, you can submit them at info@citl.org anytime. And I thought I'd give you one bonus kind of thing. If you're interested, I do have a small podcast on AI, and it's in its second season, where they're short 5 to 7 minutes, and they're meant to be teacher facing. So with that, that's what I have to share. Questions, thoughts, anything anyone wants to ask? Thanks. I love that's really cool. I did. I did tell Jennifer I brought my glasses. If you haven't seen the metaverse glasses, these are something else we're trying to figure out how to hack. They come in regular. Mine happen to be the sunglasses I had at home today, and you can record video in the classroom. We're trying to figure out where expert novices look, and then we're trying to hack the earbuds so that we could maybe coach teachers directly where kids couldn't hear them, and it will coach. It will also read screens for students with visual impairments, and it will also summarize the text in front of you. So again, just one last nerdy thing to share.
No, that's not nerdy. That's great. Then we can stop calling it bug and ear coaching, right? Like,
right, we could call it laying on your ear. These are called closed audio buds, so I guess they still have the word bud, but
CAB.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Deeker? Okay. As always, we learned a lot. Even I learned a lot. Now I'm the project officer for Flight. So each time, but you've also come a long way. Every year you've made so much progress. And for those of you, well, this is everyone, you start something, you're like, okay, this is what it's going to look like. And then you actually get going, get rolling. It's like, oh, that is not what it's going to look like, because turns out they can't use this application, or they can't connect. And so they've done a great job problem solving along the way. And I know all SPDIGs are very, that is part of their work too. So I think we learn from each other, but we are extremely lucky to have all these free resources and free technical assistance as well. So thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you for the privilege. I appreciate everyone here. Thanks.
It was great. Okay, so now, as promised, I am going to share a quiz. And I'm just going to say the New Jersey folks are not allowed to answer, because they are going to be talking about this topic. Ooh, I just gave something away accidentally. But maybe you weren't looking. So CLSD quiz. How well do you know this national literacy program? And go ahead and add your answer to the chat as I ask the questions. And John, if you could watch the chat, and then you'll see who the first person was to answer correctly. I'll say what the answer was, and then you'll know what to look for. Okay. And this isn't part of the quiz, but this is one of my favorite quotes from a movie, because I've used it multiple times. What movie is reflected in your screen, and what quote would it be referring to? And this is kind of an age-esque quiz, because if you're on my age, you for sure know it.
Well, James was the first to come in with the movie Speed.
Good. Pop quiz hot shot. There you go. So we got, James, and then for the quote, we got Scott. Excellent. All right. So now we'll get into the meat of it. So the first question is, what does CLSD stand for? And actually, I can see the chat now, John, so I'm okay. Okay, looks like the first person to answer was Michelle Woodcock. It's comprehensive. Oh, no, sorry. That's not. It's Tammy. Comprehensive Literacy State Development. I have the hardest time with it, which is probably why I decided to quiz you on it. I just don't the words in that way just don't make that much sense to me. Oh, anyways, CLSD, Comprehensive Literacy State Development. Number 2, what office in the U.S. Department of Education supports this program? So what's the umbrella office it falls under? Okay, Tammy got it. Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. So it's not in OSERS, OSEP, Office of Special Education Rehabilitative Services, Office of Special Education Program. It is a separate office. How many states currently have a CLSD grant? Okay, we got a 27, 22 or 23, 32. And if I don't get the exact, I'll give it to whoever is closest. Oh, and I skipped a question. I'll go back to it. Okay. Allison Gold, it is 33 states have a current grant. Who may apply for a CLSD grant? So number 3, who may apply for a CLSD grant? That's right, state education agencies. Very good. And I'm going to give to Emily, because I went backwards accidentally. So what age range is the grant focused on? That is birth through 12th grade. And it's not like the SPDIGs where you say, oh, well, we're going to focus on this. They have to serve all of those age ranges or those ages, the whole range. What percentage of the grant must the state sub-grant? So how much of it flows through to, say, districts, early intervention programs, etc., to serve children, youth? Okay, good. So 95% is right. Emily wins again. Emily in Oklahoma. I'm guessing Oklahoma has a grant. I'll have to remind myself by looking at the grant. And then name one professional development component required for a CLSD grant. What does SOARS stand for, Emily?
SOAR, I'm sorry, I meant to say SOAR, not SOURCE. It's the science of reading, basically. So science of reading certification.
Okay, great. And I didn't say this very straightforwardly. I was talking about how they do the professional development. So yes, definitely science of reading, but I meant how they do the professional development. And so everyone's right who's been answering so far. Yeah. So, yep, ongoing. So it's basically the ESEA definition of high quality professional development holds true here, right? You remember that whole job embedded, ongoing. So it's that definition that they're using. But of course, each sub-grantee is responsible for doing that. And then the SCA oversees it. We're going to hear more about that. So real quickly, before I turn over to Natalie and Allison, let's see if I can get it up. So I'm going to stop sharing this. And let's see if we can go to, yeah. I want to show you the list of states. So I did present, some of you have heard me say this before, I did present a couple of years ago at the CLSD conference. And I asked, raise your hand if your state has a state personnel development grant. And nobody raised their hands. And by the way, they had SPDIGs. And so I was like, we gotta fix this. We gotta fix this. So I've been working on that from my end. But so you can see the list, and I'll go ahead and put this link into the chat too so that you'll have it. But you can see this is a good chunk of money that that states are receiving. Many of them have SPDIGs. And you can find out more about the work that they're doing. But the thing is, it states in the notice that folks responded to, it states that they need to serve children with disabilities. It says in kind of a different way. I think the SPDIGs are really important for getting the CLSD right. And so I've made it my mission. I know some of you in your states have made it your mission. Oh, sorry, I'm losing that. to ensure that the SPDIG is leveraged for this work, or that, integrated, whatever that's going to look like in your state. I think it's really important for us to be thinking through that if your state has. So I'm going to go, looking at the time, I'm going to hand it over to the New Jersey folks. But please do know that there are a number of slides after what I just presented that have the language about children with disabilities, about different kinds of teachers, including special educators. And so take a look at that to have a fuller understanding of what is required of the state to have CLSDs. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie and Allison from New Jersey. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. And then hopefully we'll have time at the end. I'm going to ask them a few questions to help everyone here think about what their work has meant for your state, whether or not you're focused on literacy, whether or not you have some of the elements that they have in place, like a governor who is supportive. There's going to be something you can learn about partnerships in your state. So, Natalie and Allison, over to you.
Well, thanks so much for having us today. In New Jersey, it's been the perfect storm of having great partners in place, federal support and state support. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about our story today.
Yes, so to get us started, we'd love to do an introductory activity. So in the chat, we would love if you could introduce yourself, although I'm sure many of you know each other. And if you could, please share the name or grade and subject of a teacher that had an impact on you. And if you can, also include just a brief statement of that impact. I've put an example there on the screen down at the bottom. So it says, Mr. Collins made a great impact on me. He knew my favorite genres and introduced me to Harry Potter, which reignited my love of reading. So please take a second and share your story in the chat. And as you're working, I'm also going to share that the CLSD grant also has a technical assistance center associated with it, and I'll share the link to that in the chat in just a moment. But that's also a great place to find more information about CLSD. And thank you so much for sharing. I see some responses coming in. So Lucy mentioned that Mrs. Winnett, I think that's how it's pronounced, shared her love of history with me and let me pursue projects meaningful to me in high school. Anne-Marie shared from Maine that Mrs. Knowlton told me how to love Shakespeare through her thoughts and teaching. Yeah, it's always great when teachers can make texts like that come alive. Mrs. Lilly was at 5th grade and motivated me to explore writing. Leslie mentioned Mr. Moore eventually led me to majoring in math in college. Fantastic. Tom mentioned Sister Hope taught me to play guitar and sing outlaw country. That sounds like a very interesting person. Beth mentioned my children's 1st grade teacher. I volunteered in her room and learned how to read to children who needed additional support. So thank you. There's lots of responses coming in. We'll continue to read them. Please continue to share. And as you continue to share, I'll turn things over to Natalie, who's going to share a story about a teacher that made an impact on her.
So this literacy work is just so meaningful to me on so many different levels. Here I am in kindergarten, off to school, and I was someone who struggled to learn how to read. I grew up I was in kindergarten in the 90s, to date myself, and, whole language was very prevalent. And I really struggled. And it was Mrs. Sassman who, I got whisked away to her basic skills room, and she, unlocked the code for me. me and helped me to be a successful reader. And when I think about the work and my experience, if I had had access to evidence-based literacy practices in my classroom, I wouldn't have needed Mrs. Sassman. And this work in New Jersey is really about bringing that into our classes. And for me, it's even more meaningful because I have a 3-year-old. So the work of our office and at the New Jersey Department of Education is directly impacting the type of experience that she's going to be having in school. So throughout the presentation, we're going to first by kind of setting the stage and telling you the story of how things came to be in New Jersey, which based on the time frame, I could talk about this forever and ever, but we're really providing you a condensed version of the work. And to start, I actually in 2023 in New Jersey, before coming to the department, I had the opportunity to work on our K-5 ELA standards, which just this morning, Lisa, who's on the call, who applied for our CLSD grant, who you'll hear from later, had said, it was our SPDIG team from Rutgers really shed light on some of the issues with our standards, which led to more alignment to evidence-based literacy practices. Before coming to the department, I actually had the ability to work on this legislation. In New Jersey, we passed 2 pieces of legislation back in August 2024. One piece of legislation created the Office of Learning Equity and Academic Recovery, which I later became the first director of. And the other piece of legislation created the requirements to screen students twice a year with an approved screener, communicate those results to families, provide professional learning for pre-K to 6 teachers and school administrators, including media specialists, speech language pathologists. So that really kind of set the way in New Jersey for the start of this work. Again, it was a perfect storm because Lisa, who's on the call and you'll hear from, led the process to apply for the CLSD grant in New Jersey. So we ended up being awarded $50 million over the 5-year grant period. So not only did we have this robust legislation in place to lead the work that needed to be implemented by 2025-2026 school year, we also had funds to be able to do this at a federal level to be able to support and incentivize our state guidance. So as I had mentioned, the legislation did create this Office of Learning Equity and Academic Recovery. And one of the real interesting pieces, it's one of our only offices in New Jersey that's legislatively mandated. But one of the big roles of the office was to serve as the direct advisor to our commissioner in all things evidence-based literacy and really start to bring resources together. And when we're talking about resources, we're talking about people across the department. I'm sure in your agencies, you have people in the Office of Special Ed, Office of Early Childhood, teaching and learning everywhere across that are working on literacy. But how frequently when you talk to those people, there's different messaging going on. And sometimes, departments aren't set up for that clear collaboration across divisions and across offices. So one of the large tasks in starting this office was to really unsilo the work. It was about bringing people together and ensuring that we're having the same messaging and creating collaborative structures that just didn't exist previously. The other piece to this, it was about, also building internal capacity. So while the Lear office itself is a small team. We collaborate and work with many people across many of the divisions because that's really our legislative mandate to be able to build these collaborative structures to really support all students in this work. So another piece of the literacy legislation that was passed required us to create a working group on literacy with experts. And you might notice one of our experts right there in the corner, Todd, who's our program officer and partner or program director at Rutgers University. And he's been overseeing the SPDIG project from the Rutgers side since 2016. So he and his team have really had the opportunity to work with the department, create resources, refine them. And in this picture, you'll see the working group was split up into two different roles. One was really focused on screening and what that looked like and defining what evidence-based screeners are, which Todd and his team at Rutgers had created a tool to help define that. And the other part of that was looking and defining about what high quality instructional materials are. So this team really helped us as we gathered stakeholders from across New Jersey, from IHEs and practitioners, parents, really representing the work. And they created a recommendation document. It's located on our Lear website. And realistically, like, this document, while it provided guidance to the department in helping us release guidance, it also was really a love letter to our legislature about next steps this work could take in New Jersey. For example, New Jersey has very stringent procurement laws, and we're requiring districts to adopt screeners. Many of our districts are using the same screeners because they meet the criteria, but we as a state, based on our procurement laws, cannot negotiate collective contracts for them that would help with ease the procurement issues. So those are things that were in our working group document as recommendations, as kind of next steps to help in this work, but really solid suggestions on guiding and shaping what this work should look like going forward in the state. In May, they submitted that report in February. It was February, March time it was released. In May, we released our New Jersey literacy framework. And that really provided a guide to evidence-based literacy practices and universal screening. And this was kind of the first time in New Jersey, which we're very much a home rule state, that we put our stake in the ground and said, when we're talking about evidence-based literacy, this is the body of knowledge that we're talking about. And throughout the document, this was a really collaborative process with our team at Rutgers. You'll notice throughout the document, there are videos baked into the document to provide professional learning. So we were able to really scale up resources that had been refined over, the almost 10-year process of our SPDIG, focusing on multi-tiered system supports, or we call it New Jersey tiered systems of support for early reading. So it was an opportunity to really work with our partners at Rutgers, create this guidance, and provide those professional learning opportunities inside of our guidance document. And this guidance document we really utilize as the cornerstone. This one and our guidance on high quality instructional materials became our cornerstone as we created our subgrants for our CLSD. So for CLSD, we really thought through, okay, now that we have guidance in place, we're defining evidence-based literacy, we have the resources that we were able to scale up from SPDIG, and now how do we make this come to life by incentivizing these pieces? So in New Jersey, we also had the support of our state government with opportunities for funding. So we were able to incentivize and accelerate the use of universal screeners. We had 2 grant opportunities. One we called Focus, and it was a situation where it was a competitive grant, but everyone could be a winner, and it provided $10 per student to be able to implement universal screening or provide professional learning to support. And then we also had a grant focused on our students who are 40% or more free and reduced lunch, and 80% or more students were not proficient on our 3rd grade reading assessment. And so it provided those opportunities to really incentivize our guidance. It was also another opportunity to work with our partners at Rutgers, who became technical support for what we called our Bridge Grant, to be able to implement and really refine our tier one practices through utilizing tools like our core analysis tool, which is something that had, really come to life through our SPDIG grant. As I had mentioned, we also released our high quality instructional material guidance, and that was released at the end of July. And this became a cornerstone for our CLSD Impact Grant, we called it, to really give school districts the opportunity to apply for funds to adopt high quality instructional materials. So in the guidance document, again, we were able to utilize materials from our SPDIG project. So you'll see right here, this NJTSS ER core instruction. There's a video, but we also have a core analysis tool that really helps districts to analyze their materials. And we were able to incentivize guidance that is not mandated by the state through the use of our impact grant in CLSD. So with the CLSD, again, we were able to really think about how we were using our guidance, how we were able to utilize the materials that had been built through our SPDIG grants previously. And we awarded $13.6 million in funding directly towards districts to be able to work towards evidence-based literacy practices. Unlike many CLSD grant recipients who provide a block grant, we provided specific sub-grants that were to serve specific populations. So we had 4, which is interesting because in our original application, we had 6, but 1 focused on universal screening, which with the passage of the law, we were unable to use the CLSD funding for that because we would be in violation of supplanting. So we were really thinking about how we are coordinating these efforts and how we are utilizing these funds. So we had 1 CLSD grant, which was a 5-year continuation grant focused on providing coaches to districts. So that grant we awarded to 41 LEAs, and we also had the opportunity to utilize projects from materials from a model demonstration project, as well as grounding the coaching within our NJTSS ER framework. So it really promotes systems level change. The next grant we have is our RISE grant, which focuses on providing intervention for grades 6 through 12. Our impact grant was something that K through 12 could apply for, and that focused on providing funds to be able to purchase HQIM and the professional learning associated with it. And our final grant was our LIFT grant, which really focused on the birth through 3 population and how we're supporting that community and really building our families as the first literacy educators and supporting that community outreach. So that through the combination of our state policy, our state funding, federal funding, and through our SPDIG project, we really were at a place where it was the perfect storm in helping to put these pieces into place to move forward. So that was a little taste of our story. I definitely could, go into more detail. I'm going to turn it over to Allison for a little poll.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't know, can everyone else hear an echo? No?
I did
Okay.
it first, but it's gone now, Allison.
Okay, super. Thank you. Yes, so like Natalie mentioned, she did mention, supplement, not supplant. That is always something we always have at the forefront of our minds. But also thinking about blending and braiding funding kind of leads us to our question here. So thinking about your own state, which levers which lever, so one choice, in your state is currently the most underutilized for scaling and sustaining professional learning initiatives? So take a second and feel free to choose one of the responses and think about what might be the most underutilized right now in your state.
And if people select the other, you can go ahead and put what that might be in the chat to let people know.
Thank you.
And if you want to use the chat also to, talk about that lever or, think about ways that you could better utilize that lever, please feel free to use that chat for that opportunity.
And so far, cross-office or cross-agency collaboration is leading at about 50% of the 22 people who have responded, with community partnerships being a second with 4 of the 24 people who have now responded, and data systems also sharing that second spot with 4 people of the 24. I'll give people just a moment or two longer to focus on the poll that we've got here, and that is, which lever in your state is currently the most underutilized for scaling and sustaining professional learning initiatives?
And I would say the creation of the office and being a new person coming into the department and it just being a new framework, it really opened doors, and the commissioner really set a tone that, all assistant commissioners were to have a meeting with me about the work of this office. So I really, joined at a time where I had the support to have those meetings across every single division and connect. So, for example, we have our Office of Comprehensive Supports who works with our lowest 5% of schools. And they're also, several of their schools are grantees in our Bridge Grant and in our CLSD grants. So we've really worked with them to include them in the process, inform, but also invite them in. Just recently, we had a meeting with a school district who submitted their screening data, but it was not an approved screener. And so I had that meeting with our partner from Comprehensive Supports who works with that district. So it was an opportunity for them to really see that united front. And have everyone on the same page where, sometimes across the department, we have several different offices touching the same district, but not always coordinating efforts with each other, which leads to some confusion. But I would say, the creation of the office and the legislation and the administrative support really gave access to being able to have those cross-divisional conversations and meetings. And even our SPDIG project used to be housed in our Office of Special Ed and moved into the standards office and now my office, which has also opened up lines because we have all these people in the special ed office who were working very closely with SPDIG that now, we have those open lines of communication.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. And something I was just thinking, sort of flipping this, if anyone has any great examples of ways that their state agency was able to have that cross office or cross agency collaboration, please feel free to either come off of mute and share that or share that in the chat. Also thinking about like data systems. I know that Ohio a few years ago built their own grants management system. I don't know if that has had an effect on cross-office communication, but perhaps it has. So if there are any success stories in any of these levers, please feel free to share them as well.
Is this my time, Natalie? I just want to make sure.
Not yet. I was just trying to
Okay.
give appropriate wait
Okay.
time for the question.
it.
Wait time's so
Thank you.
hard. No. I could keep going. I just didn't know if anyone wanted to come off mute or share something in the chat. We're almost ready for you though.
Yeah, no problem.
So in terms of scaling up SPDIG, so you saw that inside the guidance document, we had SPDIG resources, but something different that you'll notice about our guidance document is it's really grounded in an NJTSS or MTSS framework. So instead of saying like, hey, these are what evidence-based literacy practices are. Here's your screener. It's a tool for you. We've really rooted it in the universal screener being a tool to help you look at the health of your system. So whether it's refinement in your tier one implementation and utilizing that core analysis tool to utilize that data to improve instruction that every student is getting, or whether you're using the data to identify your tier two and tier three students, what that looks like, and also how do you use that diagnostic data to really drill down with progress monitoring. So our guidance document is really rooted in that NJTSS-ER framework, which wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the years of SPDIG resources to be able to scale up in that way. We also have professional learning videos embedded throughout our guidance documents, and these have really been helpful to provide that on-demand professional learning to our readers of our guidance document and really make it come to life. This was something that we saw as we were doing our working group did a cross-state analysis of a lot of different documents. I want to say it was maybe Georgia that had like those professional learning videos embedded that our committee really found super helpful in helping people really make this come to life. Through the NJTSS-ER project, we also had created an admin course, or we had created a course that anyone who was participating in our project took that asynchronous course, which then we scaled up to our newly launched learning management system, which was something new for the state. But we were able to take those SCORM files that were created through the SPDIG project, and that became our required training for administrators with modules that really focused on like what are evidence-based literacy practices, but how are you operationalizing the data for tier one instruction, tier two and tier three, your universal screening, really topics that as a building administrator, you would want to have a firm handle on. And one of our current projects, which also was birthed out of Todd's DDICN model demonstration project, was the creation of coaching protocols. And we're embedding those coaching protocols right within our NJTSS-ER framework and using those coaching protocols to train regional consultants who will then serve as our cadre of literacy coaches for the state, New Jersey staff, DOE staff, because we're really working on building internal capacity, and our coaches that are in our CLSD grant. So really helping us bring that coherence in the materials that we're using. So let's talk about our story in numbers. This is one of our districts in our NJTSS-ER project. You can see based on the start of their data, the project originally let them use any screener. In a new iteration, everyone in the project is using DIBELS 8. So we were able to look at the middle of year data. That was the first collection point for this cohort, the end of year, and then also the end of year and the following year. So you can see through this one school story, through the changes that they made, I believe they started implementing UFly. They really were able to look at their foundational skills and utilize their screening data along with the support of our core analysis tool to make those changes to really improve their data. So thinking about this, and this was one school from our project, how can data and outcomes be used to tell the story of scaling evidence-based systems towards that 95% goal? We know Louisa Moats talks about how 95% of students can learn to read with evidence-based literacy structures, practices in place. So, we were able to kind of show you from one school in our project, but how can you use those data outcomes to be able to tell that story, which from listening to Jennifer speak in the beginning, it sounds like it's something that everyone is thinking about, that impact data. So if you want to come off of mute and talk about, how you've utilized data in your own projects to help tell that story about scaling, or if you want to use the chat.
Can you all see the chat or do you want me to read it?
I pulled it up. Lucy said she used the Pixar approach outlined in the dissemination workbook. Thanks for sharing, Lucy. This is something in New Jersey we're really grappling with because we do have the data from our SPDIG project. And as we're scaling up and really thinking about practices in New Jersey, how can we use those to tell like that story of, if districts in different places start that implementation, what does that look like? And also really telling the story that this isn't just like a one-year fix, it's about fixing your system. So a little more about our year in numbers. So this office was created in August 2024. I was onboarded in December 2025. And since then, through our CLSD and state initiatives, we've been able to fund, and realistically, this has been from June to September. We've funded $16 million in grants to 298 LEAs for implementation of evidence-based literacy practices. We've approximately 65% of New Jersey K-3 students are supported through our Focus grant, which was the one I talked about that everyone could be a winner, in helping to align schools implement universal literacy screening and align professional learning. We've launched 3 guidance documents, the framework that we talked about, the original document, the HQAM guidance, and then we've also released a connections to preschool document to really, think about what that looks like in New Jersey. We have universal preschool and it's continuing to expand. And then we also launched our learning management system with 2 professional learning courses comprising of 13 sessions. One of them is focused for teachers and the other one is focused for school administrators. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. Allison is going to put a resource document in the chat with a lot of the documents and things that we talked about today. But I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer now.
Thank you. And so do we have Todd and Lisa with us as well?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So why don't we quickly do some introductions? I happen to be Dr. Todd Glover's project officer for the model demonstration coaching work. And as you heard, it's been a really important partnership between Rutgers and New Jersey. And that's been so nice to see. Had nothing to do with me. I just have really appreciated it and hopefully have spread some ideas to other states I work with. And Lisa, we have not worked together before, but maybe it would be nice for Todd and Lisa to introduce themselves to the group.
Sure. So thanks for the quick introduction for me, Jennifer. Just to reiterate, I think what Natalie had said earlier, we've had a great opportunity to be able to leverage some of the work funded by OSEP, both through our model demonstration projects as well as the SPDIG funding, and then being able to connect that to this recent legislation within our state, and really build on that with these local grants that are being offered. It's been great to be a partner with our State Department of Education. We are a true partnership in terms of our work together. And I'm also a faculty member in the school psych program at Rutgers.
And I really stress that, like, while Todd is at Rutgers, he's a true extension of the Lear office and the work. I joke that I talk to Todd more than my husband.
And I'm Lisa Haverhill. I'm the Executive Director for the Division of Teaching and Learning Services at the department. And I'm lucky enough to partner with a bunch of different offices at the department, including standards, assessment, innovation, educator effectiveness, which is our educator evaluation office, Lear, obviously, and most recently, we have a climate change unit as well as certification and teacher recruitment and preparation. So having kind of a bird's eye view across all of those programs, was part of what certainly part of what was behind our application to the CLSD program, because we just saw the lack of communication and kind of disparate activities. And it was quite alarming. And it was something that we really are just so grateful that we were able to attract Natalie and Allison to come help us think this through with fresh eyes. And with open hearts, because sometimes there's history and kind of institutional things that are lingering that make it hard for folks to put down those walls and start to collaborate. And Natalie spoke to this a little bit, but I can't say enough about both her disposition and her attitude to the work that made that possible. It really is a special thing. If someone asked how we could recreate another state agency, it is just so personal. But it's really been a wonderful few years. And the fact that all of these programs were able to kind of connect so elegantly and intertwine and really leverage each other has just been incredible. So sorry, I went off a little bit. But...
No, please. No, and I think, I do have questions that I prepared ahead of time, but if the conversation goes in another direction, then that is what is meant to be. And I am absolutely fine with that.
Jennifer, it looks like our CLSD program officer, Michael Berry, is also here. So in the audience.
Welcome, Michael. Do you want to say
here.
hello
Yes,
to folks?
I am here, and I enjoyed your presentation, Natalie, so much. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure working with you and with Lisa and the entire team. I'm so proud of the work that you all have been doing, and thank you for presenting for the SPDIG group. I think it's great. So I didn't want to miss today's presentation.
Excellent.
So thanks for saying hi.
Yeah. And Michael helped me with a couple of the questions on the quiz. I just want to make sure I got it right. And luckily he did.
Yeah, that was a hard one, Jennifer, on the active grants, because not everybody knew that some of our 2020s were still going. So, I was very proud of Tammy and her work on the quiz.
Oh, now we know that someone was actually watching your answers other than me. All right. Well, Michael, welcome as well. Okay, great. And Natalie, would you mind if I take the screen?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to share a couple of things just to get the conversation rolling. All right, so very, very, very quickly, I had presented this at some point in time. Some of you have heard it. And one of my favorite cartoons ever is this equation where in between, from the beginning problem to the solution, it says, then a miracle occurs. And the other person says, I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. And so they had called Mississippi's big improvements in literacy the Mississippi Miracle, which is very annoying to Mississippi because it turns out that in between stage is a bunch of hard work where you do things like track down people in other offices to get them to talk to you. So this is from the George W. Bush Center, looked at success factors in Mississippi, and said that they had the policy in place, the supports in place, the strategic alignment, and the sustained commitment. I would say they had the leadership. So I'd be interested to hear what wasn't in place about that. Stakeholder engagement, I'm sure they've been working on it since then as well. So it was a 20-year journey, right? This is not something that happens quickly. And then here, the Mississippi policy leaders said that they had a long-term commitment to increasing standards and aligning testing and accountability systems with their standards. So, we won't really probably go into that today, but I just thought that was something interesting. But what we will get into is that comprehensive professional development focused on high-quality evidence-based instructional materials, with that science of reading. That's what makes it a success. That is the miracle in between the problem and the solution. And you heard a lot of that from Natalie and from Allison talking about what they're doing, especially with that high quality instructional materials, right? And evidence-based high quality instructional materials. That was the thing that's been missing outside of people who work in the area of disabilities at times. And then they had reading panel advisors. They were intentional about teaching teachers and supporting them in the classroom. They had research partners. They provided expert coaches, and they were actually making sure the coaches had the skills they needed, and then again, the high quality instructional materials. So you can see how much of that is similar in what New Jersey had to say today. But I did want to ask you all, any other reflections you have? You know the Mississippi story very well, I'm guessing, since this is your world. So what other reflections do you have about what it took for you all to get to where you are, knowing that you're a little earlier on the journey?
So I think thinking about the Mississippi story, like it was like, oh, they mandated all their teachers to get letters training and they were able to like come out with a list and they were able to do, and in New Jersey, that's just not our context because of home rule.
Mm.
So it was really thinking through, how do we create criteria? How do we create awareness? How do we create buy-in, to
Mm-hmm.
get to a place to be able to do those things, where I think the Mississippi context allowed them, to have some more state level control, than we necessarily have in New Jersey because of our structures.
Interesting. Okay, great. Thank you. Lisa and Todd, anything to add to that?
I'll add one thing, and that's that which I think is similar to Mississippi in that some of the the devil's in the details. And while New Jersey is a place where there's local autonomy to make decisions, the tools, the resources, the coaching, the training that we've created and developed in our state is very detailed focus. So when thinking about, the research behind reading, the assessment practices that drive reading practices, while we don't advocate for a one size fits all, there are very specific criteria that we do advocate for, and we're very specific in terms of offering guidance around those things. So it's not an empty process or framework.
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. Lisa, anything else to add?
No, just echoing that really the biggest step was saying the quiet part out loud and aligning all of these systems and really making sure that New Jersey was putting a stake in the ground by saying this is what we believe and this is where we're moving forward finally. I think we all kind of understood that's where we needed to go, but New Jersey,
Mhm.
just the department wasn't taking that lead role, like just like Mississippi did at some point, that leap of
Right.
saying, no, this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even
Great.
like in our HQIM guidance document, like we come out and we say leveled reading, bad, it's a misguided practice. We say 3Qing, misguided practice. So now there's somewhere in writing that we can point to, along with this is the research base that we're trying to end the like conversations
Mhm.
over dead. Like we're moving past this, and really getting to a place where we're focusing on what the evidence is and what does that look like in implementation, and teacher support.
Yeah. Yeah. And literacy is kind of a special, at least from where I stand, literacy is kind of a special thing because it's bipartisan in terms of politics. So, what advice would you give a state that does not have many of these elements in place? Like earlier, I don't know, Lisa and Todd, if you saw this, but we had a poll about what was the area that states weren't using as much, and you saw the cross office work came up the most, right? So what some of the things that governor support, you had funding, you had this strong university partnership building on instruments, resources, research that they had. You have the desire in the state to use evidence-based practices, good professional development to tap into. So what would you tell them if they don't have control over the 85%, maybe they have 15% control? What should they look at?
Lisa, I feel like this question's for you since Lisa was at the department. She was the director of standards when I worked on the 2023 ELA revisions. So she was starting to do this work and stakeholder engagement at the department. So I think you may have good framework for that, frame of reference for this.
Oh, it's such a hard question. I think it's finding your leverage points. And I think every state is different because every time I hear a story of what another state's been through, there were just different areas of opportunity that they could leverage, but it's getting that foothold. And it really started out in 2023 with the revision of the standards. We knew we had to do something different. We didn't know the appetite for the field to make this big move. And as we started the stakeholdering process, and Natalie shared that, reaching out to our SPDIG partners at Rutgers, they gave us beautiful feedback on the first draft. And that really influenced, saying like, look, these are changes you can make, and these are the resources that are combined with that. And that connected me to my colleagues in an office where, coming from a standards background, I didn't realize the depth of MTSS and the supports that existed because that lived in another division. And while I knew what MTSS was, I didn't realize just the depth. And so that became a leverage point. And that partnership kind of like grew and grew and grew. And then it, and with the standards being adopted, and then we started to look at funding opportunities and the legislation. It was just all these different points of growth, but connecting them was the hardest piece, and synergizing it all, because those things may have been happening in isolation. And without conversation, I wouldn't have known that SPDIG existed. And there was this incredible resource as I was doing my literacy work. If Lou, our partner, hadn't said, Lisa, let me bring in these folks.
Right.
And we had our SciSet project too, the Systemic Change Process project, which they had engaged Rutgers in, and they were really focused on, they picked phonemic awareness as their area to focus on, which was a little misguided, but it then built resources that we're actually scaling up. So it created this 4-hour graduate level module on phonemic awareness. There's one on phonics that's out too, and then we're building one on oral language, fluency, comprehension, and then the comprehension and bridge to writing. And those courses will be freely available in our learning management system, and we're hoping to get them approved through IDA's, International Dyslexia Association's accreditation process towards a CERI certification similar to North Carolina. But again, it was separate work going on in a different office, different division, where now the person who oversees that project, I actually helped hire their new literacy specialist, and we work so closely together. And I think that's been another piece, is just the hiring. My background, I started as a special ed teacher. I was gifted multilingual learners throughout my journey as an administrator, but was in the general ed world. And then our literacy specialists that we've hired are Orton Gillingham trained, ESL trained, special ed trained, reading specialists. So really picking the people who have that broader lens. So as we're talking about all learners, we're really talking about all learners from the get-go and not trying to retrofit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Todd, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Not that one. I was looking at some of your other questions. I have some thoughts.
Okay. Let's bring them back up. Yeah, the next one, is this the one that you're interested in, Todd? What driver of implementation has been especially powerful for getting you where you are? So we've heard you all say some of these things, but is there anything else you wanted to add to what's been driving implementation?
Well, I'm sure my partners here have some ideas, but I think I would say there are 3 in particular, I think, that have been particularly influential. One has been the development of strong leadership teams and the importance of having collective leadership as part of this work. The other is coaching and having strong coaching support that's provided in addition to the asynchronous and synchronous professional development opportunities that we provide. And then I would say the third, I think you said one, but I'm picking 3, is the third. The third, I would say, is the systematic use of data. And, I think the recent legislation that we have in our state has really elevated the use of data by requiring that all districts collect and report on screening data in the area of early literacy.
And I think that screening, so we're of our first window ended and collected in November. We're in process of and we finished cleaning an 80 piece the submissions from our LEAs, and we're really excited to be able to start utilizing that data to kind of guide what we're doing, because that's also been another focus in the legislation when they created the LEAR office was, how are the department is really great about collecting data, but how we're utilizing it to inform practice is something that we could be better with. So that's really been also a driving force for the office as we're kind of thinking through what we're doing, why we're doing, and how we're utilizing that data to drive our decision making.
Yeah, that's great. And we did have a request from Dr. Penny Gregory for Dr. Glover about coaching. Could you say a little bit more? And I know you could say a lot more. How many years,
I'll keep
how
it
many
brief.
years have you spent researching coaching at this point and building
A
systems?
long time. It's
Long
been
time.
one of my major research foci.
Yeah.
But I would say we use a data-driven kind of instructional coaching approach where student data is at the center of the coaching. And so, and others do similar work, but I think the student focused coaching model is another similar one to our model. But the focus is really on using student data to guide the decision-making process and the coaching that supports that. So everything, at the heart of everything is student data, looking at the practices that are in place that correspond to those students' experiences, and then supporting teachers in those practices, always revisiting student data. So that's been a big piece. And as we mentioned, I think Natalie mentioned briefly, we had a model demonstration project through OSEP that was on our coaching model that we've now integrated with the SPDIG work to provide, these protocols and soon to be trainings and support for local coaching that utilizes this data-driven coaching approach. But that approach really focuses on, everything from student screening data to follow-up diagnostic data to progress monitoring data, using those data to guide, identification of coaching foci, and then really drilling down on specific classroom practices as well and providing supports in classrooms. So it's a wide variety, but at the heart of it is always based on student data.
And I think the other different piece is the way New Jersey is approaching our coaching. So, our regional coaches that will become our coaching cadre, we're really focused on systems approach. It's not necessarily you're going to see them working hand in hand in classrooms, because one of the tenets at the center of everything is if we don't have the right systems in place, thinking about our tier one instruction and the supports for that tier one. High quality instructional materials are being selected. If we don't have those things in place, then our teachers are going to struggle in the classrooms, even if they are the best, most highly trained teachers. We need to look at what the systems are and how we can fix it. So our coaching work is really focused, at least in the initial phases, on how are we improving those systems and not necessarily in the classrooms with teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my final question here, and it's a little bit of a misnomer the way I stated it, I realize now. You are working on targeted. I know that. But many, many more schools are going to be starting tier one, and they have to have that in place before they can do the others. And we've seen at OSEP over the years, what can happen is you can not get beyond tier one, right? It's challenging. And getting to intensive intervention, extremely challenging. So do you have any thoughts on your future work in getting to intensive intervention level?
Chad, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I have one thought, and that's I think the progression, and I'm sure many of those that are on this call that do work in reading have done this, but I think starting with tier one obviously makes good sense because we don't, in many districts with which, we work, and there's a high proportion of kids that aren't meeting benchmark expectations, and we don't want to just funnel all the kids into intervention. So starting with tier one definitely makes a lot of sense. One of the ways we've helped with some of the transition from focus on tier one to the tier two, tier three supports has been kind of this intermediary step of class-wide interventions, because there are many classrooms where we have students, a high proportion of students that are below benchmarks, and rather than advocate for putting them all in small group intervention, it's an overload on resources. People can't handle that in school systems. And so we focus on class-wide interventions as a short-term solution. Those are not a long-term solution, but using screening and follow-up diagnostic data to identify skill needs for students that are high needs among students, and providing class-wide interventions in those to help alleviate some of the burden on tier two, tier three intervention. And then when students who don't respond to those class-wide interventions, then providing small group targeted intensive interventions for those students. That's been helpful to move us along past tier one and get into tier two, tier three, while not having this burden of overtaxing our system.
Mm-hmm. Got it. All right, and we have one last minute. I feel like Lisa probably wanted to say something there and you didn't get to. Is that right, Lisa?
No, not at all. I think they,
Good. You're
yeah,
good?
no,
Okay, good.
thank
All
you.
right. Any final thoughts, Natalie?
I mean, this is the speed at which it's incredible to think about the past year and how far we've come and what we've been able to accomplish. And you know, we wouldn't have been able to do it with our partners without our partners at Rutgers and their support. Even, you know, we have a separate MOU with them right now where, you know, we're launching an expert series coming up the first 2 weeks in March. We're building those modules I talked about with that team. You know how hard it is to hire people at state education agencies. So the fact that we have this trusted partner in Rutgers and we're able to really work, Todd and I are truly partners in this work. And I think, you know, because both of us are really leaving the ego at the door and coming together in this partnership and working with our teams that way, it's really provided this lever point to move the work at a quicker rate in New Jersey to be able to support all students. So I'm excited, you know, with the continued work and what we're doing, but you know, without the team in place, we wouldn't be moving as quickly as we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I completely agree with you. When I was at the Oregon Department of Education, University of Oregon, which of course I'm still kind of finishing my PhD there anyway, so it's easy for me to collaborate between the two. But we had so many great researchers and so much good work, and they were excited to get things on the ground, right? So, you know, if there's nothing else that folks do after this, it's please reach out to your universities. And you might even get free labor if you have doc students or master's students who want some time in policy or implementation. But I think there's some low hanging fruit, and then there's some much higher hanging fruit that we'll get to eventually, right? But you got to find that 15%. And Lisa, Natalie, Todd, thank you so much. Lisa Deeker, I think she just left. Michael, thank you for joining us today. It was special to have you. And John, thank you for organizing. Penny, I will connect you and Todd together, but everyone else, let us know if there's anything else we can do to help you after you have processed all that you learned today. All right. Getting lots of kudos. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.